This forgotten Soviet tomato method creates monster roots and bulletproof plants without compost or feeding. Most tomato failures don't begin where you can see them. They start silently underground, long before the leaves curl, the flowers drop, or the fruits crack in the heat. If you've ever grown tomatoes that looked strong early on but collapsed when summer pushed back, well, this is why. Decades ago, gardeners working with brutal weather, poor soil, and very little margin for error uncovered a truth modern gardening has largely forgotten. Build unstoppable roots first, and everything above the soil becomes easier, stronger, and far more reliable. Why modern tomatoes struggle more than they should. Modern tomato growing is built around comfort. Rich planting holes, constant watering, early feeding, and frequent interventions are all meant to make plants grow fast and look impressive, but comfort has a hidden cost. When everything is provided right at the surface, roots have no reason to explore. They stay shallow, fragile, and dependent. Shallow roots dry out quickly, overheat easily, and panic the moment weather turns extreme. That's why so many tomato plants look amazing in spring and early summer, then suddenly stall, wilt, or collapse when heat, wind, or drought arrives. The problem isn't the plant, it's the root system it was trained to build. Soviet gardeners didn't have the luxury of fragile plants. Tomatoes had to survive short seasons, cold nights, unpredictable rain, and soils that would scare most modern growers. Their goal wasn't speed or size early on, it was survival, consistency, and long-term productivity. Their solution was simple but radical: force the plant to invest underground before it's allowed to grow tall. So, here's the tomato advantage most gardeners waste. You see, tomatoes have this unique ability that most folks barely use. Any part of the stem that you bury can actually turn into roots, not just a little bit, not just partially. The entire buried length is capable of becoming a dense, functional root system. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. Now, let's talk about how horizontal planting actually works. Instead of digging a deep hole, you start with a shallow trench, roughly 10 to 15 centimeters deep. The trench is set east to west so the growing tip naturally turns toward the sun. Then, the tomato seedling is laid gently on its side inside the trench. It's a simple shift, but it really makes a difference. Within days, you'll notice the exposed tip curving upward toward the light. But underground, something far more important is happening. Roots begin forming along the entire buried stem. So, instead of just one compact root ball, the plant builds a long, wide root zone that stretches through the soil like a living network. That's how you end up with truly robust tomato plants. Here's where old wisdom clashes hard with modern advice. Soviet gardeners didn't baby tomato seedlings. Slightly leggy, mildly stressed plants were often preferred. Stress wasn't avoided, it was used intentionally. When a tomato is planted horizontally, it's forced to respond. The plant must quickly generate roots along the buried stem to survive. This triggers aggressive root development at the exact moment when roots matter most. This method works best because of what you don't do. No compost in the trench, no manure, no fertilizer, nothing concentrated near the stem. Rich soil right at planting really encourages lazy roots. When nutrients and moisture are handed to the plant at the surface, roots tend to stay shallow and clustered. Soviet gardeners, interestingly enough, believed roots should search, explore, and, well, earn their nutrition. Organic matter was actually added deeper into the bed months before planting, not at planting time. This, created a reason for roots to grow downward and outward, forming partnerships with soil microbes instead of depending on the gardener. The plant, in a sense, learned how to feed itself. Watering followed the same philosophy. For the first 10 to 14 days after planting, water was kept minimal, not drought stress, but just enough to keep the plant alive. The goal here was to encourage roots to chase moisture deeper into the soil instead of spreading near the surface. Frequent light watering creates shallow roots. Deeper, less frequent watering trains roots to move downward. Once the plant is established, watering becomes deeper and more spaced out. By then, the roots are already pulling moisture from soil layers untouched by heat and sun. This is why plants grown this way handle heat waves so much better later on. They're not surviving on surface moisture, they're tapping into stable reserves below. This is where many people sabotage the process by feeding too early, watering too often, or disturbing the roots. Patience is the price of power with this method. When flowering begins, the difference becomes, well, impossible to ignore. The plants stand firmer, wilting becomes rare, and heat swings just matter less. Fruit sets more consistently because the plant isn't constantly stressed by surface conditions. The harvest might not come earlier, but it's heavier, steadier, and it lasts a lot longer. Why did this method disappear? Well, this technique didn't vanish because it failed. It vanished because it demanded restraint. It doesn't sell products, it doesn't promise instant results, and it sure doesn't look impressive in the first month. Modern gardening shifted towards speed, convenience, and visible growth. Old methods that relied on soil biology and patience were quietly pushed aside, but plants never forgot, and when conditions get tough, these older approaches still outperform. So, here's how you can use this method in your garden today. You really don't need any special tomato varieties or perfect soil for this to work. Any indeterminate tomato will benefit enormously, and even determinate types become more resilient as well. Oh, and if you have leggy seedlings, they're actually ideal for this method, not a problem at all. Bury most of the stem, keep the soil simple, water lightly at first, resist feeding early, even when it feels uncomfortable to do so. If nutrition is needed later in the season, timing matters more than strength. A gentle liquid feed can be used only after the plant is well established. 1 teaspoon of compost tea concentrate diluted in 4 liters of water is more than enough. The goal is support, not stimulation. The deeper lesson beneath the soil. This forgotten Soviet tomato trick isn't really just about tomatoes, it's about how plants are meant to grow. Strength comes from being guided, not pampered. When roots are allowed to work, everything above the soil becomes easier to manage. If this guide helped you rethink how you grow tomatoes, make sure to subscribe to Farm Basic, share this with another gardener, and help keep these powerful old methods alive. The soil still remembers them. Now you do too.